Today we're going to be working on starting the roofing tiles on the dollhouse. And in order to save you all from having to watch me painfully mark half-inch lines on the roof, I did that beforehand. I started doing it, and then I was doing it in sections. And somehow the sections still got off, even though I was marking it all by half-inch. What I ended up doing was I got my handy-dandy graphic ruler, and you can see it has little circles in it. So I just ended up going across the roof, marking the half-inch circles, and then connecting the lines. I will show you my tiles. They're these cute little... There are 1 centimeter by 1.6 centimeter tiles. Remember, this is a half-scale dollhouse, so 124. And you lay them every half inch overlapping. And that's what we're going to start doing now. You just put some glue on the back. You could do it on the roof itself. Or on the tile, the roofing shingle. I'm going to try by doing it on the roof, and hopefully you just put it right up to the line. Now these will be staggered, so the next row we'll start with a half a tile and then just butt them right up against each other. Try to keep them as even as possible. And you just put the top right up on the line. That one needs to go up just a little bit more. Now it's okay, you'll start seeing some gapping in them, but that's all good because it all adds to the look. You don't want everything so completely perfect that you don't have any rusticness to it, at least for this house. I definitely want a rustic-y feel. Now I wasn't sure what color to paint the tiles, shingles. I keep calling them tiles, don't I? Was kind of going a little crazy. I thought I was going to do something in the browns or the reddish browns to try and highlight some of the stonework that I did in the front. But then my daughter came in and she's like, "Ma, just use the blue." And she was right. So although I'm using the same blue that I used for the windows, looks completely different on the tiles for two reasons. The tile is much more porous. The shingle, the roofing shingle, is much more porous. And I did not put a whitewash finish on top of it. And I think it's going to look great. You can see each tile looks a little different in color because number one, the wood pieces aren't all identical in color, and number two, depending on the grain or the cut, they all absorb the paint differently. Which makes for a really nice looking shingle. When you start putting them all together, that variation in color and tone definitely improves the look, in my opinion. I'm getting a little bit above the line there. So I'm going to finish up to here now, and then we're going to start a little bit of the second row. So that you can see how that goes. And then I'll just let the recording run, and I will speed it up when I put it online so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing. The other thing I like about wood glue, which is what I'm using, is how quickly it starts to dry. And the nice thing is you don't have to worry about them slipping and falling because they dry so quickly. Let's see, I'll go right up to there. and start on the second row. Okay, let's get this one in there. Perfect. All right, let me go get a half a tile and we'll start the next row. Okay, got my half tile. Now I'll put glue up here. Yes, I'm using my little applicator sticks again. Still the same ones without the top on it. Get a lot of use out of these. Kind of miserly in that respect. I like to use things until they absolutely can't be used anymore. You should see me with a toothpaste tube. I squeeze everything there possibly is to squeeze out of a toothpaste tube. Now you'll see on this tile, I cut it in half. I'm going to put the unfinished edge on the outside, and then when we're finished roofing the whole tile, when we're finished tiling the whole roof, I will go back and make touch-ups to the paint where it needs to be colored in again. So there you go. Now we're going to have it a little staggered. It's a little more than a half, but it's still going to alter the lines. Maybe I want it a little more than that though. Yeah, that's a little bit too much for me, so I will do it a little more than that. And I'm going to need a little more glue on the back there because that didn't catch enough. So let me get another tile. Shingle. I keep saying tile. Go on. Tell me when I say it wrong. Okay, definitely got a better one now. And as I'm seeing here, I definitely need to add more glue to the subsequent levels because of the angle. It's not catching it quite as much. So let's get a little bit more glue in there. And as you can see, this one's much thinner. So let's get it down there and make sure it's sticking. Not sticking enough. I have to get more on the bottom there. Alright, so I'm putting a little bit on so that it's glued to the other tile too. I just want to make sure I don't get any glue. Marks. Alright, so let's see there. Alright, yep, I'm putting a little glue on the bottom there to make sure that it stays. Put a hefty coating up top here. And a little bit on the bottom. Just enough to get a tack. I don't want any glue marks on my roof. Like I just did there. That piece will be mostly covered up in the next layer, so I'm not going to get too upset. There we go. It's going to look pretty. was too much. So let's separate this. Get that out of there. And I'm just going to dab so that we don't get it everywhere. Yeah, look what I'm doing, making a mess. Okay. So today we're going to be painting some more shingles for the roof. And what I do is I lay out tape sticky side up on my workspace, and I simply take the shingles, place them on the tape, doesn't matter how neat or not neat you are, you just got to get them on there. And I like to get them a little bit closer for spacing because I'm making these really not neat. But it's a lot of work to paint all these shingles, so this I find just makes it that much easier because they're sticky. There's a whole bunch of them down there, and you don't have to be fumbling with painting hundreds of little pieces at a time. So this just helps get the job done a whole lot quicker. My hands are super slippery right now, so I feel like I'm fumbling with them. And that's it. We just keep laying them until all our space is filled. So I'll be back once that is finished. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of laying all the tiles. Very tedious work, but very rewarding. The other thing I wanted to show you is, obviously, it's wood, so the grains and the coloring are all different on all the pieces, which is what makes it so much nicer. So you have the darker pieces, you have lighter pieces, you have others with the grain, can you see that? So you have the others with the darker grain going through them. And it makes for really, really nice variation when you paint them, because they look different shades and different textures, which really gives for a beautiful roof and nothing that's so uniform. For this project especially, because it looks very rustic. The other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention, well actually I didn't forget to mention it because this is going to be before the next video, so the next segment. When laying the tiles on the roof and gluing them down, I like to butt them up very tightly to each other, because as the glue dries and the wood absorbs the glue, they will warp a little bit, which gives more texture to the shingle and makes it look that much more rustic, which I personally really like. If you don't want that warping in your shingle, tile, I keep calling them tiles for some reason, then don't butt them up so closely. Leave a hairline gap between them so that when the glue is absorbed and the shingle dries, you won't have so much buckling. You'll probably get a little warping anyway just because of the nature of the product. I mean, it's very thin wood, and when it absorbs the moisture, it's going to warp anyway, but you'll avoid the buckling. Now, these particular shingles I got from miniatures.com. They're Houseworks, and they are square butt shingles. 400 pieces, covers approximately 76 square inches in half-inch scale. They are 1 centimeter wide by 1.6 centimeters long. And when laying them on the roofing, you'll draw a line on the roof 1/2 inches apart, 1/2 inch apart. And this way they'll have just enough overlap so that you don't have just tile piled on top of tile on top of tile, shingle on top of shingle on top of shingle. I guess I'm not going to get over calling them tiles, am I? But again, all makes for a really pretty finished look. I may have to buy more. I bought 4 packages. No, I only bought 3 packages, so I may have to buy another package in order to get the whole roof covered, because I still haven't decided if I'm going to do the back side of the dollhouse, which is the open side, if I'm going to put shingling on the frame for that. So we'll see. But in the meantime, I should have enough to do the front for sure. And if not, well, then when my other set comes, we'll continue on. But it's amazing what a difference the shingles make. It just gives the whole house life. Alright, so that's it for my tape there. The color I'm using is called Cloudy Sky, or Cloudy Day by Folk Art. And all you do is you just obviously, you know how to paint, but I also water it down a little bit because it's just too thick if you don't. So I take my handy dandy little pipette, get some water, I'll put a little bit in there. But then I also make sure to keep my brush nice and wet. This way it acts more like a stain than an actual paint. Again, because I want the grain and the colors in the wood to show through. So there, not too much. It's not like I'm getting crazy with water and making it completely watered down. This way you have a nice consistency in the paint itself, and when you use your brush, see I make a nice wet brush. Can you see that? Little bead of water on the top there. And then just there, you can see the water getting off there too. Then you just dip your brush in there and you just start painting. The nice thing about this too is you can always go back if you don't think it's dark enough and add more paint as your brush dries. You see, you get more paint in there. But again, you can see that it really makes it look more like a stain than anything else. Hold so that it's not moving around so much. And you see as your brush dries, it gets thicker. this again leads to the variation in color. Just so pretty. I can feel my brush is getting a little dry, so I will be adding more water, just a touch, just enough to get that wet, which also obviously further waters down the paint as you put the brush in. I'm going to go a little off camera here, so excuse my arm. I will speed through this part while I get the pieces that are off camera. You can go back and pick up here where you get a lot of water, add more color. You can even see the color differences when they're wet. Again, lends to a really interesting feature on the house that people don't usually tend to think much about. We're down to the last couple of tiles, so I'm getting those painted. I'm almost there. Again, the wet brush is very good because it also helps to get the paint on the sides and the edges of the shingle without you having to make yourself crazy getting to those sides, especially because they're so tiny. That's pretty tedious. So another good reason why you make your paintbrush nice and wet. And then again, you go back over it with more paint to get the desired coverage that you want. As you can see, we have just a little bit left at the top of the dollhouse and on all the eaves to roof. I actually ran out of tiles, so I bought more. But the great thing was, when I went back online to buy more, from miniatures.com, by the way, they were on sale 25% off, so I bought 10 bags because I know I'll need more in the future. So today we're going to finish up the roof tiles on this side of the house. And one of the things I wanted to talk about also is finishing the top of the roof here. As you can see, we have this little eave in there. And what I thought about doing was these paper straws. And I painted them in the blue color that I've been painting the tiles in, putting them up in the eave to fill in that space and bringing the tiles right up in there. So if you could see that they fill in the space really nice. And I'm thinking when we get up there, maybe doing the last row of tiles right from the eave so that they cover it up a little bit too. So let's see what happens when we get up there, and hopefully that will work. In the meantime, let's get back to putting these tiles on and get this baby finished. Well, at least the roofing finished, right? Once again, we are using just wood glue to glue the tiles on. And I have them separated about at 1/2 inch. But you can see here too, let's see if you can see closely enough, that I kind of got off on where I was placing them. You see this is a little bit below the line because it looked like they were starting to get just a little too far apart, and I didn't like the way that was going. So I took a little artistic levity in there, not levity, what's the word I'm looking for? Artistic choice, and made the decision to bring some of them down a little bit more and closer together. So that's what I've done up there. Now I'm just trying to get some glue out so we can get started here. I don't know if this bottle's still any good. It doesn't look like it is. No, I don't think it is. All right, we're going to throw this bottle out and get a new bottle. I think this one dried up a little bit. Very thick and gelatinous. So we'll get some of my Gorilla Glue and put that in there. Oh, there we go. Much better. This is the first time I'm using the Gorilla Wood Glue. As you can see, Gorilla Wood Glue. And it's a little bit different color than the Tight Bond, which is fine, but interesting. All right, let's see. Probably going to get 2 more rows up here. Let me see how this does. Yeah, that looks about right. So we'll go halfway in, and we'll bring some at the top. So that we can just lay them in there. This is, again, this is my first time using Gorilla Glue, so I hope I like this as much as I like the Tight Bond, because the Tight Bond works really, really good, and it dries really, really fast. So we'll see what happens here. And then we'll just lay them in. As I was working along and putting them in, I decided I liked putting the glue on this way because it was definitely the easier way to do it. Okay. And I will just keep laying them across. Yeah, this seems to be sticking pretty good, holding pretty well. Okay, so I've been trying to think about what I want to do for the cap here. I don't like this top shingle being so out in the open, I guess you could say, when they layer over everything going all the way down the house, the roof. So my original thought was to use these straws and just put that up there along the ridge to fill in this gap. But that still leaves the issue of these shingles being so exposed, I guess. I don't like it that it's just that full shingle. So what I decided to do is I'm going to use cardstock and make the cap like that. Obviously I'll paint it the color of the shingle, but then that covers the shingle and makes a nice clean finish for the top there. And you won't see this anymore. And then once the other side is done, because now obviously I think I have to shingle the other side too, which would only make sense to finish it off, right? Yeah, so I'll shingle this side too. Then we'll put this on for the cap, and that'll be our roof. Alright, I think that's what we'll do. I'm also going to use thinner pieces, obviously, but put them in here to clean up the edge in here. But it will definitely be a much thinner piece, because you see how ragged that edge is? I don't like that at all. Hi. So I just want to show you how we're making the pieces for the roof cap and the lining pieces for the eave. What I'm doing is I'm just taking cardstock, cutting it to size. So this would, for example, be as if I were using it for the roof cap. Cut it to size, and then placing it back on the trimmer halfway centered, so that this piece of paper now you see is centered. Then I'm taking a ball stylus and I'm running the ball stylus down the cut mark. Obviously this isn't the one I'm going to use because I'm not taping it down, but well, let's do that. We tape it down so that it's halfway there. A little bit of painter's tape, and so that it stays even. Okay, so it's taped down, painter's tape, both ends. Can you see it better this way? Yeah, this way you can see it better. Okay, so we tape it down, and then I'm just taking the ball stylus and I'm running it down the cut line. Let's move this out of the way so that it makes a pleat mark in the paper. Then we will take that off. And now you can see you have that pleat mark right there in the paper, and it makes it nice and even so that you can easily fold it in half. Makes a nice clean edge to it. This way you're not making an uneven edge when you fold it. And then this will become the roof cap. Now for the liners for the eaves, I did the same thing, but because they're skinnier, they're just thinner, that's all. But again, you cut the piece of cardstock to width, put it back on with some painter's tape, and use your ball stylus to go down. Now for these really thin pieces that I'm going to be using for the eaves, what I did with this was I put it in first, and I did my width, which let's see would be about there, because my width on this is how many millimeters? Let's see, 3 millimeters. So we'll show 1, 2, 3 millimeters. And now because it's so thin, it's harder to make a straight line on it when we're already cut to the 6 millimeter width. I just put it in I scored it first, and then I moved it over to cut it to the correct width. And this I'm just eyeballing. If it's a little too thick, I can always cut a little more off. There you go. So now you have a nice, even, thin piece. I'm going to use the edge of my table to start the bend because it really is thin. With a nice straight bend. And then I'll cut it to length once I paint them and get them measured out for the eaves. But there you go. All right, on to the next step. Hi everyone. Okay, I'm very excited. This will hopefully be the last part of this video. As you can see, I finished all the shingles on the back half of the house. I finished all the shingles on the front half of the house, including the dormers. And now I'm starting, if you can see here, I'm putting the trim in to clean up the edges. And then what I'm going to do for the top here is this trim. Let me see. I'm going to have to put this on a tripod because this is silly. I have to learn how to video better, actually, is what I have to learn to do. And that's part of the reason why it takes me so long to get these videos up, because I just hate videoing. I'm so bad at it. But I promise I'm going to work on it. All right, so the trim is done on the dormers in the corners. This trim will go on the top. And I made these for the top of the roof. So those will go on up here. And what I'm going to do to kind of neaten up these places where they connect is I made little ones to kind of look like caps. And I think that's what I'm going to do to clean up the connection point. This way it's not just a seam, it will be like a cap, right? So let me do that, and then I will show you the finished product. And I promise I'm really going to work on my videoing skills because this stinks. All right, I'll be back. Bye. Now this is the officially finished and trimmed roof for my Alisha Dollhouse. I'm very happy with the way this came out. I got my corners all nice and even and well rounded, and it just looks, there's dirt in there. It just makes it look so much cleaner and neater. Now on to the front. As you can see, again, the trim is all finished, and I tried to space them as evenly as possible. I made a little dent there, but that's all right. So that the caps looked like they were spaced evenly on the house. And the tops of the eaves, all good. I think the only thing I'm going to have to do is I made a little nick there, so I'll have to put a little trim paint there. And you can see on the sides, I'm going to paint that blue so that the edges look nice and clean. But there she is. I'm very happy. All right, let's get this video posted. And thank you for your patience, everybody. I'm really working on trying to get this videoing thing done better. And I still have to figure out how to get that date and time out of that corner. Have a great day, and I'll be back soon. Bye.